All right. This is the beginning of a series of videos on various higher brain anchoring tools. So the game of life, as I've said, to give you the highest sense of internal meaning and external purpose is to become higher brain dominant, and everyone has access to this. And so far, we've been talking about the big picture of going from lower to higher and what the payoffs are. But now we're going to get into some of the nitty gritty of some ways to anchor in different parts of your higher brain to allow these seeds to grow and become more higher brain dominant. And so this talk is on the concept of self-compassion and compassion for others, as well as self-distrust. You have to have a kind of both of them at the same time, believe it or not, based on how powerful the lower brain is and what it's, really like a supercomputer. And so this is a list of all the higher brain tools that I'll teach you over time. And so there's, left prefrontal cortex, and then there's the midbrain, and going from front to back, and then more of the social part of the brain on the right side of the brain, typically. And so we're going to be focusing, we're going to just go from left to right, top to bottom, and left to right. Each little video will hit on one of these tools. Okay. So today we're going to focus on self-compassion. And this is anchoring in the left prefrontal cortex, in particular, what I would call the orbital prefrontal cortex, which is really this powerful storytelling machinery that we have. It really gives us our narratives about life, our values, how we attach dopamine signals to different things and value them. It's all based on stories, believe it or not. And we can change the storytelling machinery to implant stories that are actually more helpful and keep us more higher brain and more powerful and more effective. And so the concept of this little talk is that your lower brain is a supercomputer that was programmed by life and different types of trauma as you perceived it. And everyone had some degree of trauma in a variety of categories that I'll get into in another talk. But let's say, whether it's being humiliated or losing out on something or being abandoned or unpredictability in parenting or your upbringing, real volatility. There are different categories of trauma that we'll lay out, but everyone has is sort of gets affected and then programs their lower brain to be self-protective. And so you create these different algorithms in your lower brain that create protection for that same scenario if it shows up in the future. And so there's a lot of evidence that most 99.99% of human beings do not have free will. And you will not have free will until you accept your lower brain as it is. And in fact, you should not beat yourself up for anxiety and depression and addiction, loneliness, fear, anger, etc. But you also cannot allow this to be a basis of identity and an excuse for you to not take a lot of creative risk in this life, get bumped and bruised by life, be engaged, take feedback, invest time in things, because that creates a much richer life. So a lot of people make the lower brain mistake of using this as a basis for identity and then an excuse for not engaging life. I'm saying avoid that trap, but also don't beat yourself up for having these things, because that will prevent you from actually going into the lower brain and being aware of it and being able to shut it off in order to become more powerful. Because, in fact, there are many books, and some, including Daniel Kahneman, who won the Nobel Prize for his work and launching the field of behavioral economics. Free Will by Sam Harris, this book by Subliminal by Leonard Mlodinow, and others, including this very powerful book called Behave by famous neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky, all point to the same thing, that this supercomputer makes the decisions for life and based on feelings and dopamine system manipulation gets you to have either energy to engage or take away energy and disengage from a person, from a situation, from trying something new, from taking creative risk as we define it. And then what happens is we make the decision and then we make up the reason for why we made the decision. The reason that we make up for that decision is oftentimes wrong. It is not what we think it is at the level of the conscious mind. This all points to the idea that we do not have free will until we can feel what the lower brain is doing. Once we can feel what the lower brain is doing, then we start having access to these various algorithms that we have in our computer or supercomputer that were developed based on various kinds of trauma reactions and positive things in life as well. And so it is vital for you to understand that you do not have free will. You cannot beat yourself up for having anxiety, depression, addiction, etc., because your computer, your supercomputer was programmed by life, programmed by thousands of interactions that is now causing you to be disengaged from life and not as strong as you could be, which then causes anxiety, loneliness, addiction. Um, so if we accept ourselves as we are, self-compassion, and accept other people as they are, compassion for others, it gives you much deeper insight into what's actually happening from moment to moment in your lower brain as it engages with this world. So then you can separate from it, cool it, develop a relationship with your lower brain, cool it down, and then make room for the higher brain to come in and become more powerful and more engaged with this life. This life is infinitely capable of richness, engagement, growth, development, discovery, innovation, connection, happiness, spiritual advancement. It's unlimited for everybody, but you have to be willing to take risk. Okay, so as a result, the action that I'm recommending for you is don't be so hard on yourself. Accept your lower brain as it is in different circumstances. Recognize what it's doing in different circumstances and say, huh, interesting. I'm having a negative feeling. I'm having anger. I'm having anxiety. I'm having stress. I'm having cloudiness of my brain, whatever it is. Just observe it and say, very interesting. I wonder how my lower brain is calculating this situation. Accept it. That allows you to separate from it and become more and more able to anticipate what it's going to do. And now free will is starting to emerge in your life. Okay. So, and then one more thing to add to that, you also can't trust yourself. So if you say, ah, you know what, I don't beat myself up for any of those things. You know, I don't, that's also a problem because you need to have self-compassion and self-distrust because your lower brain is probably manipulating you into, we're fine, everything is fine. And so you don't necessarily, you're potentially being disengaged from taking risk and disengaged from honesty, disengaged from feedback, disengaged from commitment, because you're in the positive thinking, everything is great, I'm fine, I'm just fine. That's also a lower brain manipulation that you need to be aware of. So you do need to feel lower brain activating. You want lower brain to be there. You want to be aware of it because then you know that it's either not doing too much destruction or too much disengagement from life. Okay? All right. So we'll see you in the next video. Thanks.